morning. I wanted to talk a little bit this morning about some conversations I had. I had a conversation last night with a lady in our meditation group who's really struggling with Christians who are so convinced that they're the only ones saved in the whole world. And she wanted to know, what do I say to them? The real problem is that she comes from that background and she still assumes that their way of thinking about it is correct. Once she begins to trust her spirit and the heart of God and the God who is love, she'll very quickly, that delusion will dissipate. And then she will come forth with a proclamation of the love of God, and that love will literally challenge how certain they are about all things. Let me share. I was talking with a person from India this morning, an evangelist, or so they say. What do you know online who somebody really is? And they were talking about India and their work in India and in the streets and everything. And so I asked him, quite frankly, I said, so do you really think that India will become a Christian nation? And he said, well, no, I don't. I said, well, then do you believe that the vast majority of people in India are bound for hell? And there was a great period of silence, and then a rather confused answer that the answer was such that I knew that he had been caught in how crazy his ideas were. That he is sitting in a country and knows nothing about the love of God and everything about this system called born again. This is the system to which Jesus comes to. A religious structure, convinced, second temple, beautiful, everything you could possibly want, an established priesthood, different schools of theology, but that was all right. They pretty much agreed on the main stuff, and that's all that matters, right? Is that you agree on the main stuff. And Jesus talks to one of their leaders and he says, here's the problem. You guys need a revelation. The way you're thinking is completely wrong. We're in, they're out. We're elect, they're not. Let me show you, I demonstrate by my life how God is, because I understand God. I dwelt with God before this physical life. I dwelt with God in the heavens. And I shared love with him, and I know what is his unique nature. Here's what needs to happen. You got to be born again, man. You've got to get a fresh revelation of the true nature of Father God in heaven. One of the ladies in our meditation group last night was talking about some people, and she said, I went talking about a particular fellowship up here in Anza that she attended, and she said, I went there and it felt like someone had sucked all the spirit out of it. And it was just a bunch of people running around, convinced that they were convinced, and glad that they were in and judging everybody else on the outside. Of course, saying it's love all whole time, but not understanding really what love is. And that's what Jesus has before Nicodemus. He has people that will cross the street, that will avoid the people whom God really loves. And Jesus says, look, in Luke it's recorded that he says, I really came here to free you guys, to set the captives free, to open the blind eyes, spiritual eyes. Everything he did in the physical really was speaking about, then the physical was really speaking about spiritual dynamics. You understand? What did they want to do the minute he said, I've come to set people free? Now he's saying this in the midst of the power people that are convinced that they are free, that they are the sons of Abraham, and that they are elect, and they're just waiting for God to confirm their righteousness. They're waiting for a coming whereby God will kill their enemies, confirm great glory on them, and put them into great positions of authority and power over mankind, where they can rule according to righteousness. Does this sound familiar? And of course, once Jesus talks and says, look, this is what it is here. We've got this opportunity. There's this shift before you. And we can move into Jubilee. We can move into the forgiveness of debt. We can move into doing away with all the forms of control. We can do away with swords, away with war, away with famine. We can move into this Messianic age. Let me ask you what they chose. They got a coming, but they didn't get the coming they thought they were going to get. And so I'm saying to all my Christian friends out there, and indeed to everybody, but we all have to be born again. And again and again. The Spirit has left all these forms without function. And Jesus tells Nicodemus, look, Nick, you can't control the Spirit. All your structures have done is just call all your theologies, all your certainties about who's in and who's out. All that has done is cause the Spirit to flee. And I don't care how many times you tell yourself you have the Spirit because you said this and the Spirit came into you. You see, you're talking about intellectual constructs. But yes, does the Spirit float through? And you'll find most of the time it's when you're singing a song that's not theological at all, or when you're loving one of your grandchildren, or where you're doing something selfless. Not when you're knee-deep in theology and in your certainty about who's going to heaven and who's going to hell. Because God is no respecter of persons, and even a broken clock is right twice a day. And so we need to be born again. All of us. The whole world. There's an age coming. An age where we will see the love of God begin to and begin to move out through us as we join in unity just around love. And more you will see the abandonment of all these fixed ideas about I'm saved and they're lost. And we will not judge anymore according to the flesh, which means religious systems and theologies, but we will discern according to the Spirit who are the sons and daughters of God. We're all the sons and daughters. We all have the power to become, do you see? But you become by being. And God is love, and you become by coming into relationship, not by saying some magic words or phrases, but in the quietness of your own heart, seeking what is better for others. And so I asked this man in India, I said, you're going to have to share a different Jesus. You're going to have to put away the colonial way you were taught of conquest, and we win and our enemies are vanquished. That's nonsense. That is a language for a failed metaphor. And it's time we move away from it. I tell you all sincerely, and myself, we must all be born again and again and again. As always, God bless you, and I bless you.